Maya Richardson was tired, the kind of tired that settles deep into your bones after working 12 hours straight at the veterinary clinic. Her scrub still smelled like antiseptic and wet dog as she pulled into her driveway that Thursday evening. The porch light flickered. She'd been meaning to fix that for weeks now, casting strange shadows across the front of her small rental house. She sat in her car for a moment, rubbing her eyes. 23 days until Christmas. 23 days until her daughter Zara would come home from college for winter break. Maya had been saving every extra dollar, picking up extra shifts, skipping lunches. The envelope hidden in her bedroom dresser now held almost $800, just enough for Zara's plane ticket home and maybe a few small presents under their tree. King's massive head appeared in the front window, his tail wagging so hard his whole body moved. That sight alone made Maya smile. She grabbed her purse and headed inside, where 85 pounds of German Shepherd nearly knocked her over with excitement. Okay, I missed you too, buddy, she laughed, scratching behind his ears the way he loved. King had been with her for 3 years now, ever since she'd adopted him from a police canine retirement program. He'd been injured during training, nothing serious, just a hip issue that made him unsuitable for active duty. But to Maya, he was perfect. More than a pet. More like family. She fed King his dinner and heated up leftover rice for herself. The house was quiet except for the sound of his kibble crunching and the hum of the refrigerator. Sometimes the silence felt peaceful. Other times, like tonight, it felt a little too heavy. As she ate standing at the kitchen counter, Maya noticed something through the window. Her mailbox looked different. She squinted, trying to see clearly in the dim streetlight. Had someone hit it? She set down her fork and walked outside, King following close behind. The moment she got close enough, her stomach dropped. Spray painted across her mailbox in sloppy red letters were words that made her blood run cold. Racial slurs, hateful, vicious words that seemed to glow in the darkness. Her hand started shaking. King pressed against her leg, sensing something was wrong. Maya pulled out her phone and took pictures, her fingers trembling. This wasn't random. This was personal. This was someone telling her she wasn't welcome here. She'd moved to this neighborhood 18 months ago because the rent was affordable and it seemed quiet. Safe. Sure. She'd noticed a few strange looks at the grocery store, a couple of neighbors who never returned her waves, but she'd chalked it up to being new, being an outsider. Now she wondered if it had been something else all along. Maya called the police. The dispatcher said someone would come by to take a report. She waited on her porch for 40 minutes, King sitting alert beside her before a patrol car finally pulled up. The officer was young, maybe mid-20s, and he looked at the mailbox with barely concealed disinterest. "Any idea who might have done this?" he asked, clicking his pen. "No," Maya said. "I just got home from work and found it like this." He wrote something in his notepad. "Have you had any disputes with neighbors? Arguments? Anything like that?" Maya felt a flash of frustration. "No, I keep to myself. I work, I come home, that's it." The officer looked around the dark street. "Well, could be kids. Teenagers pulling pranks. Happens sometimes." "This isn't a prank," Maya said firmly. "These are hate words. Someone is threatening me." "I understand you're upset, ma'am, but unless you have a suspect or witnesses, there's not much we can do. I'll file the report and you can call if anything else happens. Might want to set up a camera or something." And just like that, he was gone. Maya stood on her porch, staring at the hateful words on her mailbox, feeling completely alone. King whined softly and nudged her hand with his nose. "It's okay, boy," she whispered, though she didn't quite believe it herself. "We're okay." The next morning, Maya tried to scrub the paint off her mailbox before leaving for work. It wouldn't come off completely, leaving ghost images of the words behind. She made a mental note to buy paint this weekend. Just another expense she couldn't really afford. At the clinic, Maya threw herself into her work. She assisted with 2 surgeries, calmed a terrified cat getting vaccinations, and helped a worried owner understand their dog's medication schedule. Animals were easier than people. They didn't judge. They didn't hate. They just needed care and love, and Maya was good at providing both. During her lunch break, she called Zara. Her daughter's voice was bright and cheerful, talking about final exams and holiday plans with friends. Maya didn't mention the mailbox, didn't mention the knot of anxiety that had settled in her chest. Why worry her? It was probably nothing. Just some ignorant person acting stupid. But when Maya got home that evening, Mrs. Chen from next door was waiting on her own porch. The elderly woman had always been kind, offering Maya homemade dumplings occasionally and watching King when Maya worked late. "I need to tell you something," Mrs. Chen said, her accent thick but her eyes serious. "Come, sit." Maya joined her on the porch steps while King sniffed around the yard. Mrs. Chen looked uncomfortable, wringing her hands. "There are some men," she began slowly. "Young men, maybe early 20s. They come around sometimes. They've been causing trouble in the neighborhood, breaking windows, leaving notes, scaring people." Maya's heart sank. "What kind of people?" Mrs. Chen met her eyes. "People like us. People who aren't white. The Hernandez family 3 streets over. Someone slashed their tires. The Pakistani family who owns the convenience store on Main. Someone broke their window and left horrible messages. The police, they don't do much. They say it's random crime, but it's not random." "Why didn't anyone tell me this before?" Maya asked. "People are scared. We all just keep our heads down, hoping we're not next. But I saw them drive by your house yesterday."
Slow, like they were looking.
"And then last night this happens to your mailbox." Mrs. Chen shook her head. "I should have warned you sooner." "I'm sorry." Maya felt cold despite the mild evening temperature. "Do you know who they are?" "I've seen them at that bar on Jefferson Street. They have tattoos, symbols. They're not good people, Maya. They want to push us out, make us afraid. They think this neighborhood belongs to them." After talking with Mrs. Chen for another 20 minutes, Maya went inside feeling sick. This wasn't just vandalism. This was organized. Intentional. She was being targeted simply for existing in a place someone else had decided she didn't belong. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. Every sound made her jump. A car passing by. A dog barking in the distance. The house settling. King seemed to sense her anxiety because he stayed unusually alert too, his ears swiveling at every noise, occasionally letting out a low growl at something only he could hear. Around midnight, Maya got up and checked all the locks on her doors and windows. She moved the envelope of cash from her dresser to a different hiding spot in her closet. She even pulled out the baseball bat she kept in the hall closet and leaned it against her bedroom wall, just in case. This was her home. She had every right to be here. But lying in the darkness, listening to the night sounds, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that something bad was coming, that whoever had painted those words on her mailbox wasn't done with her yet. King jumped onto her bed, something he normally wasn't allowed to do, and curled up beside her, his warm body pressed against hers. Maya didn't have the heart to make him move. Instead, she buried her fingers in his thick fur and tried to convince herself that everything would be fine. But deep down, she knew better. This was just the beginning. 3 nights passed. 3 nights where Maya barely slept, jumping at every sound. She'd installed a motion sensor light by her front door and kept her phone charging next to her bed at all times. King had become her shadow, following her from room to room, his protective instincts in overdrive. It was Monday night, just past 2 in the morning, when everything changed. Maya was in that fuzzy space between sleep and waking when King's growl cut through the silence. Not his usual alert bark when someone walked past the house. This was different, deeper, more primal. A sound she'd never heard from him before. Her eyes snapped open. King was standing at the foot of her bed, completely rigid, staring toward the hallway. Every muscle in his body was tense, his hackles raised, that low growl rumbling continuously from his chest. Maya's heart started pounding. She sat up slowly, straining to hear what had triggered him. For a moment, there was nothing. Just the normal sounds of the house. Then she heard it, a soft scraping sound from the front of the house. Metal on metal. Someone was at her door. Her hands fumbled for her phone on the nightstand. Before she could grab it, there was a tremendous crash. The sound of wood splintering. Her front door being kicked in. Maya's body froze in terror even as her mind screamed at her to move. Heavy footsteps. Multiple people. Crashing sounds as things were knocked over in her living room. King exploded into action, launching himself off the bed toward the bedroom door. Maya scrambled after him. "King, no!" "Come back!" But it was too late. She reached her bedroom doorway just as 4 figures in dark clothes and ski masks burst down her hallway. The lead man, tall and heavily built, grabbed Maya by her arm and shoved her hard against the wall. The impact knocked the wind from her lungs. Well, his voice was rough, mocking. "Looks like someone's still here. You didn't take the hint, huh? Another masked man pushed past, heading into her bedroom. Maya could hear him tearing through her things, drawers being yanked open and emptied onto the floor. A third intruder was in her living room. She could hear glass breaking, her TV crashing to the ground. "Please," Maya managed to gasp out. "Take whatever you want. Just leave." The man holding her laughed. It was a cold, cruel sound. "Oh, we will take what we want. But first you need to understand something. This neighborhood, it's not for people like you." He emphasized the last two words with such venom that Maya felt tears spring to her eyes. Not from sadness. From pure rage and helplessness. "Found something," the man in her bedroom called out. He emerged holding Maya's laptop in one hand and the envelope of cash in the other. Her savings, Sarah's plane ticket home, her daughter's Christmas. $800. Not bad for a Monday night. "That's my daughter's money," Maya said, her voice breaking. "Please, I need that for—" "Should have thought about that before you decided to live where you don't belong," the leader said. He pulled something from his pocket. Her grandmother's pearl necklace, the only valuable jewelry she owned. "Nice, my girl will like this." The fourth intruder, shorter than the others, kicked over King's water bowl. Water spread across the kitchen floor. Stupid dog bowl. Where's the mud anyway? That's when Maya realized King hadn't barked. Hadn't attacked. He'd run from the bedroom, but then nothing. Terror gripped her. Had they hurt him? Was he hiding? That wasn't like him at all. Probably ran away. One of them laughed. "Smart dog." The leader shoved Maya again, this time toward her couch. She stumbled, nearly falling. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to pack up your stuff and get out. Find somewhere else to live. Because if we have to come back here—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. They were destroying everything. Her small TV lay smashed on the floor. Picture frames were swept off shelves. Her mother's Bible, the one thing she'd inherited when her mom passed, was thrown carelessly into the corner, its pages bent and torn. One of them spray-painted something on her living room wall. The same kind of hateful words that had been on her mailbox. Maya felt sick watching them defile her home. "Yo, check the kitchen," the leader ordered. "See if there's anything good." Two of them headed toward her kitchen, stepping over the spilled water from King's bowl. They were laughing now, emboldened by her fear, treating her home like their personal playground. That's when the shorter one made a mistake. He raised his hand toward Maya, maybe to shove her again, maybe to grab her. She never found out, because King had never left. He'd been waiting, watching, and the moment that hand went toward Maya, 3 years of police training kicked in. 85 pounds of muscle and fury came out of nowhere. King had been crouched in the darkened hallway, completely silent, waiting for the right moment. Not the scared pet these men assumed he was. A trained protection dog who understood threat assessment and timing. He hit the shorter man like a missile, his jaws clamping down on the man's forearm with crushing force. The intruder's scream was piercing, terrified. He tried to shake King off, but it was useless. King had been trained to hold, and hold he did. "Get it off. Get it off me," the man shrieked, stumbling backward into a coffee table. King rode him down, never releasing, his growls filling the room. The leader spun around. "What the—" King released just long enough to reposition, then attacked again, this time going for the man's leg. The intruder collapsed, blood soaking through his jeans where King's teeth had found their mark. "Do something," he screamed at his friends. The other two rushed toward King, but this was what he'd been trained for. Multiple opponents. Protecting his handler, King moved with incredible speed and precision, positioning himself between Maya and the intruders. His teeth bared, blood on his muzzle, he looked absolutely ferocious. One of the men tried to circle around, but King anticipated it, lunging forward and snapping his jaws with a sound like a bear trap closing. The man jumped back, fear clear even through his ski mask. Maya's shock broke. She dove for her phone on the floor where it had fallen, her fingers shaking so badly she could barely swipe it open. 911. She hit dial while holding the phone up, recording everything. "Someone's breaking into my house. 4 men, they're still here. Send help." She was shouting into the phone, giving her address over and over. The leader pulled something from his jacket. A knife. The blade caught the light, long and wicked-looking. "I'm going to gut that dog." But King didn't back down. If anything, he became more aggressive, his barks now mixing with those deep, terrifying growls. He positioned himself directly in front of Maya, making it clear that to get to her they'd have to go through him first. and none of them wanted to do that. The man on the floor was still screaming, clutching his bleeding arm. Blood was spreading across Maya's carpet, dripping from King's jaws. The reality of the situation was sinking in. This wasn't the easy intimidation they'd planned. "We gotta go," one of them said, his voice panicked. "Now before the cops show up." "What about Danny?" another asked, pointing at the injured man on the floor. "He can walk. Let's move." They tried to grab their injured friend, but the moment they moved toward him, King attacked again. He caught one of them by the pants leg, fabric tearing, sending the man crashing into the wall. The injured man, Danny, was scrambling backward on the floor, leaving a trail of blood. Crying and cursing, Maya kept her phone up, recording everything. The 911 operator still on the line, telling her police were on the way. Lights were coming on in neighboring houses. She could see Mrs. Chen's porch light flick on across the way. The leader made a move toward Maya, knife extended, trying to get past King. It was a desperate, stupid move. King was faster. He lunged, and the man had to dive backward to avoid those snapping jaws. The knife clattered to the floor. "Forget it, just go." The leader was backing toward the broken front door now, his bravado completely gone. Two of them bolted through the door and into the night. The leader hesitated, looking at his injured friend still on the floor, then at King standing guard over Maya, then at the broken knife on the floor. His eyes, the only part of him visible through the ski mask, met Maya's for just a second. "This isn't over," he snarled. Then he ran too, disappearing into the darkness. Danny tried to follow, limping and crying, clutching his mangled arm. King started to pursue, but Maya called him back. "King, here, stay with me." The dog immediately returned to her side, pressing against her legs, still alert, still ready. Maya could feel him trembling with adrenaline, but he hadn't stopped protecting her for even a second. Outside, she could hear car doors slamming, an engine roaring to life, tires squealing as they fled, and in the distance, finally, the sound of sirens approaching. Maya sank to the floor, her legs giving out. King immediately sat beside her, licking her face, checking if she was okay. She wrapped her arms around him, burying her face in his fur, feeling his rapid heartbeat against her chest. "Good boy," she whispered, her voice choked with tears. "Such a good boy." The sirens grew louder, filling the night air with their urgent wailing. Maya sat on her living room floor, still clutching King, watching red and blue lights flash through her broken doorway. Her whole body was shaking now that the adrenaline was wearing off. King wouldn't leave her side, his body pressed protectively against hers, his ears still alert for any sign of danger. 2 police cars screeched to a halt in front of her house. 4 officers rushed toward her door, hands on their weapons. Maya raised her hands instinctively, even though she was the victim. Even though she'd been the one to call them. "Ma'am, are you hurt? Is anyone else in the house?" The first officer through the door was a woman with kind eyes, her voice firm but concerned. "No, they left. There were 4 of them. They broke in, they robbed me, they—" Maya's words tumbled out in a rush. "My dog stopped them. He protected me. They had a knife. One of them is hurt badly, they might still be close." The officers spread through her house, checking rooms, securing the area. The female officer knelt beside Maya, examining her for injuries. There was a bruise forming on Maya's arm where she'd been shoved against the wall, and her hands were scraped from when she'd fallen. "We need to get you checked out," the officer said gently. Then her eyes moved to King, whose muzzle was still stained with blood. "Is that your dog's blood, or—" "Theirs," Maya said. "He bit one of them really bad, on the arm and leg. The man was bleeding a lot when they dragged him out of here." Another officer appeared in the doorway. "We've got a blood trail leading to the street. Significant amount. And we found this." He held up a ski mask that had apparently been dropped in the yard. "I've called for backup to canvass the area. If one of them is injured that badly, they'll need medical attention. We'll check hospitals and urgent care centers." The female officer, her name tag read Officer Brennan, helped Maya to her feet. "I need you to tell me everything that happened. Every detail you can remember. Take your time." Maya's voice was steadier now. She walked Officer Brennan through the entire nightmare, from King's warning growl to the door being kicked in, to the racist words they'd said, to King's attack. As she spoke, she remembered her phone. "Wait, I recorded some of it." Maya grabbed her phone from where she'd dropped it on the couch. Her hands trembled as she pulled up the video. "I called 911 and started recording. It should have captured their voices, maybe even their faces. Officer Brennan's eyes widened as she watched the footage. The video was shaky and dark, but it had captured everything. The intruders' voices, their threats, the racist language, King's attack, the blood, the knife on the floor, everything. "This is excellent evidence," Officer Brennan said, her tone shifting from sympathetic to professionally excited. "Can you send this to me right now? This is exactly what we need." Within minutes, more officers arrived. Crime scene investigators began photographing everything: the broken door, the blood on the carpet, the spray-painted slurs on the wall, the scattered belongings. They carefully bagged the knife that had been dropped during the chaos. They swabbed blood samples from multiple locations. A paramedic arrived to check on Maya, cleaning her scrapes and examining the bruising on her arm. Another paramedic looked at King, who had a small cut on his shoulder that Maya hadn't even noticed during the attack. "He's going to need stitches," the paramedic said. "But he's one tough dog. Probably saved your life tonight." Maya's throat tightened. "He did. They would have hurt me worse if not for him." Mrs. Chen appeared at the broken doorway, wrapped in a bathrobe, her face creased with worry. "Maya, I heard everything." "I called police too, and I recorded from my window." Officer Brennan immediately went to speak with Mrs. Chen. The elderly woman pulled out her own phone, showing footage she'd captured from across the street. It showed the intruder's vehicle, a dark pickup truck, and captured the license plate clearly as they sped away. "Mrs. Chen, this is incredibly helpful," Officer Brennan said, taking down the information. She radioed it in immediately. "All units, we have a plate number. Dark blue Ford F-150. Plate number." She read off the numbers Mrs. Chen had captured. Another neighbor, a middle-aged man named Tom who lived 2 doors down, came forward. "I saw that truck earlier tonight around midnight. It drove past real slow. I thought it was weird but didn't think much of it. They were definitely scoping out the place." More neighbors gathered on the street, many of them people Maya had never spoken to before. A young couple brought her a blanket. Someone else offered coffee. The Hispanic family from the next block over came down, the wife translating for her husband who spoke limited English. "We had similar trouble last month," the wife said quietly. "Windows broken. Threats. We were too scared to report everything. But maybe now with your video." Officer Brennan was taking notes furiously. "Has anyone else experienced similar incidents? Vandalism, threats, break-ins?" Slowly hands started going up, more than Maya had expected. The Pakistani store owner arrived, still in his pajamas, talking about his broken window. The Hernandez family mentioned their slashed tires. Mrs. Chen described suspicious vehicles and threatening notes. A pattern was emerging that the police could no longer ignore. "We've been dealing with a group operating in this area," Officer Brennan admitted. "But without solid evidence or witnesses willing to come forward, our hands have been tied. Tonight changes everything." Around 4 in the morning, Officer Brennan's radio crackled to life. "We've got them. Stopped the vehicle 3 miles from the scene. 4 males inside, one with significant dog bites to his arm and leg, barely conscious from blood loss. They've got property matching the victim's description. Bringing them in now." A cheer went up from the gathered neighbors. Maya felt her knees go weak with relief. They'd been caught. "Actually caught," Officer Brennan smiled. "Thanks to your dog, your video, and Mrs. Chen's footage, we've got them cold. The injured one will go to the hospital under guard, but all 4 will be charged. And Maya, with that video recording their words and threats, we can add hate crime charges to the burglary and assault." The female officer paused, then added, "I should tell you something. We've been investigating a group that's been targeting minority families in this area for about 6 months now. These guys match the description. If they're who we think they are, your evidence might help us close multiple cases." As dawn began to break, casting pale light through Maya's broken doorway, investigators were still working. They'd found more evidence in the suspect's truck, spray paint matching what was on Maya's wall and mailbox, tools used for break-ins, even a notebook with addresses of other minority families in the neighborhood. They were organized, Officer Brennan explained. This wasn't random. They were deliberately terrorizing people, trying to drive them out. But they made a mistake tonight. They picked someone who fought back, who had the courage to record everything, and who had one very loyal, very brave dog. Maya looked down at King, who was resting his head on her lap. finally relaxing now that the danger had passed. The veterinarian who'd been called to stitch up his shoulder had just finished, praising him for being so calm during the procedure. "He's a retired police K-9, isn't he?" the vet asked. Maya nodded. "He washed out of the program because of a hip injury. They said he was too gentle, that he hesitated during aggression training. I guess tonight proved them wrong." "Not wrong," the vet corrected. "He knew the difference. He didn't attack until you were actually threatened. That's not a lack of courage, that's intelligence and proper training. This dog knew exactly what he was doing." By 6 in the morning, a crew had arrived to board up Maya's broken door temporarily. The crime scene investigators had finished collecting evidence. Officer Brennan handed Maya a stack of papers, incident reports, case numbers, victim assistance information. "The prosecutor will want to speak with you," she said. "Your testimony and that video are going to be crucial. I won't lie, this will be a process. Court dates, possibly a trial. But Maya, what you did tonight, fighting back and getting evidence, you didn't just save yourself. You're going to help a lot of other families get justice too." Mrs. Chen invited Maya to stay at her house for the day, but Maya refused. "This is my home. I'm not leaving." She spent the morning cleaning up the mess as best she could. Neighbors brought supplies, cleaning products, garbage bags, even a new water bowl for King. Tom from down the street brought his tool set and spent 3 hours helping Maya fix her door properly, installing a deadbolt that could actually stop an intruder. Around noon, Maya's phone rang. It was Zara, her daughter, calling between classes. Maya had texted her briefly to say she was okay but hadn't given details yet. "Mom, what happened? Your text scared me. Are you really okay?" Maya sat on her couch, one of the few pieces of furniture that hadn't been damaged, with King's head in her lap. She told her daughter everything. There was silence on the other end when she finished. "I'm coming home," Zara said firmly. "I'm getting on a plane today." "Baby, no. You have finals, and I'm fine, really. King protected me. The men who did this are in jail. Mom, they stole your savings. How am I supposed to come home for Christmas now?" Maya felt tears prick her eyes. "We'll figure something out." "We always do." What Maya didn't know yet was that Mrs. Chen had already started something. The elderly woman had created a community fundraiser online, sharing the story of what had happened. By that afternoon, it had raised $500. By evening, 2,000. The story was spreading, not just in their neighborhood, but across the city. Local news stations were calling. Everyone wanted to interview the woman and her hero dog who'd fought back against a racist gang. Maya wasn't sure she wanted that kind of attention, but Officer Brennan encouraged her. "People need to hear stories like yours," she said. "They need to know that standing up to hatred matters, that communities can come together, that justice is possible." That night, sleeping in her partially destroyed home with a new deadbolt on the door and King on the bed beside her, Maya felt something unexpected. Not fear, not anymore. Anger, yes. Violation, absolutely. But underneath it all, something else was growing. Determination. The morning after the break-in, Maya woke to find her phone flooded with messages. Text after text from numbers she didn't recognize. Emails from reporters. Friend requests on social media. The story had blown up overnight in ways she hadn't anticipated. She scrolled through them while King pressed against her side, still extra protective after everything that had happened. One message caught her attention. It was from a local news anchor asking if she'd be willing to do an interview. Maya stared at it for a long moment, her thumb hovering over the delete button. Part of her wanted to hide, to process everything privately, to pretend life could just go back to normal. But she thought about what Officer Brennan had said, about all those other families who'd been targeted, about the notebook full of addresses found in the suspect's truck. She typed back a response. Yeah, she'd do the interview. 2 days later, Maya sat in her living room across from a reporter named Lisa Chen. No relation to Mrs. Chen, though they'd joked about it before the camera started rolling. The spray-painted slurs on her wall had been covered with a sheet, but everything else was left as evidence of what had happened. The broken picture frames, the boarded-up door, the stains on the carpet where blood had pooled. "Tell me what went through your mind when you heard your door being kicked in," Lisa asked, her voice gentle but professional. Maya took a breath. "Honestly, terror, complete terror. You hear about these things happening to other people, but you never think it'll be you. I thought they were going to kill me. But you didn't freeze. You recorded everything. Why?" I don't know if I can explain it, Maya said slowly. In that moment, part of my brain was just screaming in fear. But another part was thinking, if something happens to me, if they hurt me, I need evidence. I need proof. Because I'd already called the police once about my mailbox and they'd done nothing. I knew that without proof, this would just be another report that went nowhere. Lisa leaned forward. You mentioned your mailbox. This wasn't the first incident? Maya shook her head and explained about the racial slurs spray-painted on her mailbox days earlier. About Mrs. Chen's warning. About learning that she wasn't the only one being targeted. So you knew you were in danger, but you stayed? This is my home, Maya said firmly. I work hard. I pay my rent. I'm a good neighbor. Why should I have to leave because some hateful people decided I don't belong here? My daughter is counting on me. I'm saving to bring her home for Christmas. I couldn't just run away. The interview shifted to King, who was sitting obediently beside Maya, his stitched shoulder visible. Lisa asked about his background, his training, his actions that night. He's not just a pet to me, Maya explained, her hand resting on King's head. He's family. And that night he proved it. When that man raised his hand toward me, King didn't hesitate. He knew I was in real danger. And he acted. The police report says one of the intruders needed 17 stitches and nearly lost consciousness from blood loss. Good, Maya said bluntly. That sounds harsh, I know. But these men broke into my home. They threatened me with racial slurs. One of them pulled a knife. If King hadn't stopped them, I don't know what would have happened to me. I'm not sorry he hurt them. I'm grateful he saved my life. The interview aired that evening. Maya watched it at Mrs. Chen's house with several neighbors gathered around. When it ended, there was silence for a moment. Then Tom from down the street started clapping. Others joined in. You were so brave, Mrs. Chen said, squeezing Maya's hand. So strong. But Maya didn't feel particularly brave. She felt exhausted, angry, violated. Her home still didn't feel safe, even with the new locks. She kept waking up at every sound, her heart racing, reaching for King in the darkness to make sure he was still there. The next morning brought unexpected news. The online fundraiser that Mrs. Chen had started had exploded after the interview aired. It had gone from $2,000 to over $15,000 overnight. People from across the country were donating. $5 here, $50 there, some even sending hundreds. I can't accept this, Maya said, staring at her phone in disbelief. This is too much. You earned it, Mrs. Chen insisted. People want to help. Let them. The messages that came with the donations were overwhelming. People thanking her for speaking out, sharing their own stories of discrimination and fear, praising King as a hero. Some were from other Black women who'd faced similar situations. Others were from people who'd never experienced such hatred but wanted to show support. A local security company called offering to install a complete alarm system in Maya's house for free. What happened to you shouldn't happen to anyone, the owner said. Let us help make sure you're safe. The veterinary clinic where Maya worked set up a collection box for her. Clients started bringing donations, cash, gift cards, even pet supplies for King. One elderly client, a regular whose cat Maya had helped nurse back to health, pressed $200 into her hand with tears in her eyes. My grandson is Black, the woman said quietly. He's only 12. I'm terrified every day about the world he's growing up in. What you did, standing up like that, it gives me hope. Thank you. But not all the attention was positive. Maya started receiving threatening messages, too. Anonymous accounts online telling her she got what she deserved, that she should have left when warned. Some were so vile that Officer Brennan advised her to document everything and consider getting a restraining order if anyone could be identified. Don't let them scare you, Officer Brennan said during one of her check-ins. These are cowards hiding behind screens. They're not going to do anything, but we're taking every threat seriously. 3 weeks after the break-in, Maya received a call from the prosecutor's office. A woman named Jennifer Rodriguez asked if she could meet with Maya to discuss the case. They met at a coffee shop downtown. Jennifer was young, maybe early 30s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She ordered them both coffee and laid out a folder of documents on the table between them. I'm going to be straight with you, Jennifer began. This case is bigger than what happened to you. The 4 men who broke into your home, they're part of a larger organization. We've been investigating them for 8 months, but until your incident, we didn't have enough solid evidence to move forward. She opened the folder, showing Maya photographs, images of other vandalized homes, threatening letters, police reports from families who'd been too scared to follow through with pressing charges. The notebook they had in their truck, it contained 23 addresses, all belonging to minority families. They were systematically targeting people, trying to create an atmosphere of fear. Your video, your testimony, Mrs. Chen's footage, it's the break we needed. What are they being charged with? Maya asked. Jennifer's expression hardened. For your case specifically, burglary, armed robbery, assault, criminal threatening, and federal hate crime charges. But we're also connecting them to at least 6 other incidents. If convicted on all counts, the ringleader, his name is Trevor, is looking at 15 to 20 years. The others will get 8 to 12 years each. Maya felt a flutter of something in her chest. Not quite satisfaction, more like validation. They're really going to prison? If you're willing to testify, Jennifer said. I won't lie to you, it won't be easy. Defense attorneys will try to discredit you. They'll bring up everything they can about your past, your life, trying to make the jury sympathize with their clients instead. It can be brutal. I'll do it, Maya said without hesitation. Not just for me. For everyone else they targeted. For the families who were too afraid to speak up. Jennifer smiled. That's what I was hoping you'd say. The trial is scheduled for 6 months from now. That gives us time to build an airtight case, and Maya, with your evidence, they might not even want to risk trial. Their lawyers have already started talking about plea deals. Over the following weeks, Maya's life found a new rhythm. The fundraiser had raised over $30,000 by the time Mrs. Chen closed it. Maya used some to replace everything that had been stolen or destroyed. She bought a new laptop, replaced her broken TV, got her grandmother's pearls appraised to see if she could find a replacement. But mostly, she saved the money. She bought Zara's plane ticket home for Christmas, business class this time as a treat. And she started thinking about something bigger. One evening, sitting at her kitchen table with King at her feet, Maya did something she'd been considering for days. She called the K9 training facility where she'd adopted King 3 years earlier. I want to talk to someone about protection dog training, she told the person who answered. Not for me, I mean my dog is already trained. But I'm wondering about starting a program for other people who might need protection dogs. She was transferred to the facility director, a man named Robert who remembered King well. Maya explained her idea, using some of the donated money to sponsor protection dogs for vulnerable people in her community. People who'd been targeted. Single parents, elderly residents, anyone who needed that extra layer of security and companionship. That's actually a brilliant idea, Robert said. His interest clearly piqued. We have several dogs that wash out of police programs for minor issues just like King did. They're trained, disciplined, loyal. They just couldn't pass the final certifications for active duty. But they'd be perfect as personal protection dogs. They talked for over an hour, sketching out ideas, training programs, costs, logistics. By the end of the call, Maya felt a spark of excitement she hadn't experienced in weeks. She wasn't just a victim anymore. She was going to do something about this, something that would help others feel safe in their own homes. The local news caught wind of her plans and did a follow-up story. Local woman turns trauma into action, the headline read. The story detailed her idea for the protection dog program, which she was calling King's Guard in honor of her own dog. The response was immediate and overwhelming. More donations poured in, specifically earmarked for the program. Local businesses offered support. The veterinary clinic where Maya worked pledged to provide free medical care for any dogs placed through the program. A trainer from another facility called offering to volunteer his time. Within a month, Maya had formed a small nonprofit organization. She'd recruited volunteers. They'd identified their first 3 dogs from the K9 retirement program, all perfectly healthy animals that had minor issues preventing them from active police work, but would be ideal as protection companions. Their first recipient was a 72-year-old Vietnamese woman who'd had her windows broken twice in 3 months. The second was a single father with 2 young daughters who'd received threatening notes. The third was Mrs. Chen herself, who'd been Maya's staunchest supporter through everything. The day they did the first placement ceremony, matching the elderly Vietnamese woman with a beautiful German shepherd named Luna, Maya felt tears streaming down her face. The woman spoke limited English, but the joy on her face needed no translation. She kept saying thank you over and over, hugging Luna, then hugging Maya. You did this, Officer Brennan said quietly, standing beside Maya at the ceremony. You took something terrible and turned it into something beautiful. Maya looked down at King, who was watching Luna with what she could swear was pride in his eyes. We did this, she corrected. All of us. The whole community. That night, Maya sat on her porch, something she'd been too afraid to do in the weeks after the break-in. King lay beside her, his head resting on her lap. The street was quiet, peaceful. Mrs. Chen's porch light was on across the way, and Maya could see Luna's silhouette in the window. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer, the prosecutor. Defense offered a plea deal. Trevor pleads guilty to all charges, 15 years minimum. The others follow suit. Your testimony won't be needed. They're not going to trial. You won. Maya read the message 3 times, letting it sink in. They'd pleaded guilty. They were going to prison. Justice was actually happening. She texted back, "Thank you." Then she set her phone aside and buried her fingers in King's fur, feeling his steady breathing, his warmth, his unshakable loyalty. They'd tried to break her, to scare her away, to make her feel unwelcome in her own home. Instead, they'd given her purpose. 6 months had passed since that terrifying night. Maya stood in the courthouse hallway, smoothing down her dress for the 3rd time in as many minutes. Even though the men had taken plea deals and wouldn't be going to trial, the judge had asked if she wanted to give a victim impact statement at their sentencing hearing. She'd said yes immediately. King wasn't allowed inside the courthouse, so Mrs. Chen was watching him at home. Maya felt oddly vulnerable without him by her side, but Jennifer, the prosecutor, stood close by offering quiet reassurance. You don't have to do this, Jennifer reminded her. The sentences are already agreed upon. This is just for you if you want it. I want it, Maya said firmly. They need to hear what they did. And I need to say it. The courtroom was more crowded than Maya had expected. Other victims who'd been targeted by the same group filled several rows. The Hernandez family, the Pakistani store owner, the elderly Vietnamese woman who now had Luna. Even Tom from down the street who'd helped fix her door had come to show support. When Maya was called to the stand, her legs felt shaky. She sat down, adjusted the microphone, and looked out at the courtroom. Trevor and his 3 accomplices sat at the defense table in orange jumpsuits, their faces harder to read now than they'd been behind those ski masks. Trevor stared straight ahead, refusing to meet her eyes. Ms. Richardson, the judge said kindly, you may proceed whenever you're ready. Maya took a deep breath. 6 months ago, 4 men broke into my home in the middle of the night. They kicked in my door. They grabbed me, shoved me against a wall, threatened me with a knife. They stole my belongings, destroyed my property, and spray-painted hate speech on my walls. But worse than all of that, they tried to steal my sense of safety, my sense of belonging. They wanted me to be so afraid that I'd pack up and leave the neighborhood I'd worked hard to afford. Her voice grew stronger as she continued. I'm a veterinary nurse. I work long shifts taking care of sick and injured animals. I'm a single mother saving every penny to support my daughter through college. I've never hurt anyone, never caused trouble. My only crime in their eyes was being black and living in a neighborhood they decided belonged to them. One of the men at the defense table shifted uncomfortably. Maya kept going. That night changed me. For weeks afterward, I couldn't sleep. Every sound terrified me. I had nightmares. I'd wake up in a panic thinking they were back. I was afraid to be in my own home, the place that's supposed to be your sanctuary. They took that from me. She paused, letting her words sink in. But here's what they didn't count on. They didn't count on my dog King protecting me. They didn't count on me having the presence of mind to record their threats and their faces. They didn't count on my neighbors coming together to support me. And they definitely didn't count on me refusing to be silent. Maya looked directly at Trevor now. He glanced up briefly, then looked away again. I learned that I wasn't their only target. They had a list of 23 families. 23 homes of people who looked different from them, spoke different languages, practiced different religions. They wanted to terrorize an entire community, and for a while it worked. People were afraid. Some families did move away, but not anymore. Her voice rose slightly. Because of what they did to me, I started King's Guard, a program that provides trained protection dogs to vulnerable community members. We've placed 12 dogs so far, 12 families who now feel safe in their homes, 12 families who won't be easy targets for people like these men. She gestured toward the defense table. so in a strange way I should thank them. Their hatred and violence inspired something positive, something that's making our community stronger and safer. They wanted to divide us. Instead, they united us. Maya's voice softened. But I also want them to understand the real cost of what they did. My daughter called me crying after she heard what happened. She wanted to drop out of school to come protect me. A 20-year-old shouldn't have to worry about her mother being murdered in her own home. My elderly neighbor, Mrs. Chen, installed 3 new locks on her door and barely sleeps. The Pakistani family's youngest son has nightmares about bad men coming. These ripples of fear and trauma, they spread far beyond just the direct victims. She took another breath. I'm not the same person I was 6 months ago. I'm more suspicious now, more guarded. A part of my innocence about the world is gone, and I'm angry about that. I'm angry that hatred like theirs exists, that people can look at another human being and decide they're less worthy of safety and dignity because of the color of their skin. Maya looked at the judge, but I'm also stronger now. I know what I'm capable of. I know my community has my back. And I know that good people outnumber hateful ones, so while these men tried to break me, they actually revealed how unbreakable I really am. She finished by looking back at Trevor and his friends. I hope you spend your time in prison thinking about what you did. Not just to me, but to all those families. I hope you realize that your hatred didn't accomplish anything except ruining your own lives. And I hope that one day you become better people than you were that night. When Maya stepped down, the courtroom was silent. Then someone started clapping. The elderly Vietnamese woman with Luna. Others joined in. The judge had to gently ask for quiet. Trevor's sentencing came first. 15 years with the possibility of parole after 12. His lawyer tried to paint him as misguided, influenced by online extremist groups deserving of mercy. But the judge wasn't swayed. Mr. Trevor, the judge said sternly, you organized a campaign of terror against innocent families. You kept lists. You planned attacks. This wasn't youthful indiscretion. This was calculated hatred. Ms. Richardson is right. You tried to steal people's sense of safety and belonging. That is one of the cruelest things one human can do to another. The other 3 received sentences ranging from 8 to 12 years. As they were led away, Trevor glanced back at Maya one final time. She couldn't read his expression, but she held his gaze steadily until he looked away first. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. Maya had gotten better at handling them over the past months. She made a brief statement about justice being served and hope for healing, then headed home. King nearly knocked her over when she walked through the door, his tail wagging frantically. Maya laughed, getting down on the floor to properly greet him while he licked her face enthusiastically. I know, I missed you too, she said, scratching behind his ears. We won, buddy. They're going away for a long time. Mrs. Chen had prepared dinner, homemade dumplings that filled Maya's house with delicious smells. They ate together, talking about everything except the sentencing, giving Maya's mind a rest from the heaviness of the day. Later that week, Maya received an unexpected package. Inside was a letter from the Community Foundation and a check for $20,000. A grant for King's Guard to expand its operations. We believe in the work you're doing, the letter read. Your program is a model for how communities can come together to address safety concerns while promoting healing and unity. Maya stared at the check, overwhelmed. With this funding, they could place twice as many dogs, maybe even expand to neighboring communities that had similar problems with hate groups. She called an emergency meeting of her volunteers. They gathered in her living room, the same room where she'd been attacked months ago, now transformed into the headquarters of something beautiful. Mrs. Chen brought tea. Tom brought his laptop to take notes. Officer Brennan came on her day off to offer advice.